Morning, everyone. Good to see you all. Welcome to the Wildlife Conservation Board meeting, February 26, 2026. We will call this meeting to order at 10:02 in the morning. I am the Vice Chair of the Wildlife Conservation Board, Damon Nagami. Good to see you all. And we will start with what is first on the agenda. Do we have to do a roll call? Very first thing.
Damon Nagami.
Present.
Karen Gear.
Here.
Valerie Taramini. Here. Fran Pavley. Michelle Peralt.
Present.
Tina Thomas. Here. Eric Sklar. We have a quorum.
Great. All right. Next item, approval of the agenda. So just looking around at board members, does anyone have any questions, corrections, anything on the agenda? All good? Going once, going twice, and sold. Okay, we're good on the agenda. Congrats to us all for getting through item number 2 in this new era. All right, item number 3, discussion and election of board chair and vice chair. Do you want to say anything or?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank Damon for stepping up and running this meeting because, as some of you may know, Chuck Bonham, after our most successful meeting in San Diego, decided that was the capper and he was out. So he left CDFW at the end of last year, beginning of this year, and is no longer on our board, which is sad. But Damon has agreed to step up and run the meeting as vice chair. But we do need a new chair, and we need a new vice chair. So because we normally do this election every year, although I think it's open for the board's discussion whether we could do it every 2 so that we don't have to re-up it every February. But I leave that to you all to say if you're interested in being chair or vice chair and how to proceed.
Thank you, Jen. So this is a super formal process here where we just sort of talk it out and figure out what we want to do. I'm available and interested in serving as chair if folks would like me to. It'd be nice to have a vice chair if anyone was interested. So I guess now would be the time for volunteers.
I'd be happy to volunteer.
Great.
So
Tina.
I'd also be happy to make a motion that you should be the chair.
Okay. And then should I make a motion that Tina should be the vice chair? And then why don't we mush those motions together and make them one motion to vote on? Going once, going twice? All right.
Done.
That was easy. Okay, so there's a motion for myself as chair and Tina Thomas as vice chair. And let's have a roll call.
Board Member Gear.
Aye.
Board Member Taramini.
Aye.
Board Member Nagami.
Aye.
Board Member Pavley. Board Member Peralt.
Aye.
Board Member Sklar. Board Member Thomas.
Aye.
The motion passes. Okay, I gotta do this.
Great. Congrats to me and to Board Member Thomas. Thank you all for your confidence. We will try not to have this great thing we have going fall apart on our watch. All right, moving on to item 4. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was hoping we could talk about the 1 year versus 2 years.
Yeah, for sure.
So from my perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense for it to be 2 years as there's only 4 meetings a year, but maybe we should have said that before you all volunteered to be chair and vice chair. So anyway, I would be happy to make a motion that it's 2 years if we need a motion, but open for others' consideration.
If they're doing a terrible job, we can revisit this in February, but I think we're fine. Let's go with that. How about that? That'd be great for continuity. Yeah? We're good?
We don't have.
Yeah. Maybe just an aye.
Yeah, why don't we just do it by, okay, so there's a motion on the table for 2-year terms for chair and vice chair. Everyone in favor, just say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, then that passes. Thank you. Thanks, Karen. All right, moving on to item number 4, Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Chair Nagami. Also, we forgot to mention that Erica Zavaleta has gone off the board again as Fish and Game Commission President, and Eric Sklar will be back. He was unable to make this meeting, but he'll be joining us at the next one. So thanks to Erica for her service, and we're excited to see Eric back. Okay, high level, I did want to share, we posted last night our year in review. We give ourselves the February board meeting as the deadline to get this out. It's short, it's beautiful. It's a good summary of the exceptional work we did with all of you and all of our partners across the state last year. It's a nice document for us to be able to share with legislators and our bosses to let them know that we actually get good things done. So I encourage you to take a look at that. I gave a copy to each of the members of the board. We can get copies for other folks up here, but it's online and it's very nice. So thanks to Meredith Fleener at the Department of Fish and Wildlife who helped us design it, and of course to Mark Topping, but also all the staff who contributed to this work. The other big announcement is at our last board meeting, we were going through the Proposition 4 rulemaking process so that we could have our guidelines available to allow us to spend Proposition 4 funds. You voted on a set of guidelines. We tried the process. We've had emails about this. We were unsuccessful. But just last week, the legislature and the governor signed, thank you to everyone who supported this, an exemption from the APA for our Proposition 4 funds for this year. So our 25-26 funds can be spent, which is why we didn't have to drop a whole bunch of projects for this board meeting. So that was a huge relief to all of us. And also, you know, a pretty big lift for our partners at the legislature to get that done. So we just want to say thank you to those that helped that happen. And congratulations in advance to all of you whose projects are now moving again. Hi, Fran, welcome. Some other things I just need to share with you. As part of the budget last year, there were a flurry of earmarks at the end that came in various shapes and sizes and colors. One of them was a $20 million set aside for golden mussel eradication. We were able to transfer that money to the Department of Fish and Wildlife through an interagency agreement. So that has happened. I just wanted to give you transparency on that. We've accomplished that transfer. There's another item on the agenda for what we're calling bird returns. It's a set of bird projects that was also an earmark. That was described as a grant. So we were doing that as a grant. But nonetheless, WCB will be actively involved in spending those funds. So I just want to flag that whenever there's an earmark like this, we still are heavily engaged. Our admin staff in particular have a lot of back end work to do. So we did it, but it's still part of our docket of work to do. And speaking of work we do, the other thing that I shared in the packet is a list of transactions that our acquisition team has conducted over the last several years. This is part of some authority that we have to basically do real estate work for the Department of Fish and Wildlife. This is one of the sort of unsung tasks that we quietly do in the background and we don't celebrate in these meetings often enough, but it is a lot of work, often for not a lot of acreage, but these are PG&E right-of-ways, or these are land transfers. These are also, every time the department does an ancestral land return, our staff does the real estate work. Also, whenever the department wants to buy a piece of property, we become their broker essentially and do that work for them. So this list that you see in front of you is just a compilation of the work since the last time we reported. Some of them are kind of old. I think we realized we forgot to report them last time we did. We'll do a better job of sharing that more regularly, but that's just for your awareness of how awesome our team is and the work that they do. Question?
I just had a question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Turn that on. Just because, you know, some of these people are paying, some of the people are not paying, and sort of what's the criteria for when folks are having to pay for these easements and when they're not?
I might want to ask John to answer that question.
I could jump in.
Or Colin can.
Yeah, so it varies depending on the specifics of the transaction. So for example, you'll see on the first page, I think it's the fourth one down, Mount Shasta Fish Hatchery overhead power line easement. That was an easement that the department needed. So we weren't going to make the utility company in that case pay us for an easement over CDFW land. So a lot of it depends, like if the easement is something that WCB is acquiring at the request of the department, or I shouldn't say acquiring, we're giving these because the exemption relates to grants of easement interest over CDFW owned property. And the board's delegation, I think from the 90s, was anything less than $50,000 that staff can do it.
Can you move your microphone just a little?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Anything less than $50,000, we have to report back, but we have the authority to do it without bringing it to the board for action. So when the department is telling WCB, give an easement over this land to this utility company or that, because it's a benefit to the department, it's something that the department needs. In those instances, we're not charging those utility companies to pay, versus there's other instances where a private landowner who might be a neighbor says, I need an easement over CDFW land. So in those instances, there's no benefit to the state there. That's where we're having it be appraised. The appraisal goes through the Department of General Services, and then there's an actual financial payment to the department that WCB deposits at that point.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense if there's private benefit. I think the one that jumped out to me was the one for the trail. And it seemed like that was I don't know the specifics of the project. So the Watsonville Trail was like the most expensive one. And generally, I think we're supportive of public access.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the specifics of it were.
Yeah, the recreational trail, that's the Watsonville one. Yeah, that's part of a larger project that the city of Watsonville is doing to connect a lot of, so they came to CDFW and requested an easement. And I think a lot of the valuation there is it's a coastal property. So it's kind of like high dollar value. So a lot of it also is dependent upon the area that the property is located that affects the valuation.
Right, so it's tied to the fair market value of the
Yeah.
easement itself. So that, sure that's said.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, I think that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the board on the report? Okay. All right, so let's move on to item number 5, board member updates and reports. And just checking to see if any board members have any updates, anything they want to
Okay.
contribute. Great. All right, seeing none, we will move on to item number 6, funding status.
Okay, thanks. So the funding status on your agenda on page 6 just shows you the balance of funds remaining. What should stand out to you is that we have largely spent the discretionary money that we have. And I've said this before, some of these numbers look a little on the larger side because they're a roll up of a bunch of smaller items that are very specific. We do have 48 million in the Habitat Conservation Fund. And so we're glad that that fund is going to continue for the next 5 years. That's a really important fund for us for buying land. There's, a bunch of other smaller bits, but what you should notice really is that our big money now is really Proposition 4. And the only other thing I would say about just our funds, and this is always true, is that each one of these funds, and sometimes some of the sub funds underneath them, come with their own requirements, their own expectations, their own limitations. And so it is not the case that something that we funded under the general fund would necessarily be allowable under Prop 4. So you can't always look at what we've done in the past and predict what's allowed in the future. We're responsible for making sure that everything we do is consistent with our obligations. So that's a challenge we always face because people say, well, you funded that. And it's like, well, that was this weird special fund for golden mussels, which we normally don't do eradication of invasive species in that way. That's the department, which is why the money went to them. So there's just always a mix of things, but now we're in Proposition 4, which is, bond law. It has a very specific set of things that we have to do. Most of the projects are going to be capital outlay projects. So I just wanted to call your attention to that and let you know that, we do have a lot of money to spend and we're excited about it, but it's not going to go as far as we think. And that's the other thing I always want to tell our partners is it looks like a lot, but we're getting just a couple hundred million a year and we have so much demand and so much great work happening across the state that it goes really fast. So that's a challenge we face. It's a good problem to have, but that there's so many good projects, but that's where we are. That's all I got.
All right, great. Any questions, board members?
I had a question.
Board member Pavley.
Yeah, apologize for being late. I'll blame it on the plane. Yes, I was curious about general fund status. Did it have to be encumbered prior to the end of this fiscal year? It's about 7 million.
Currently, that fund does expire this fiscal year, but there's always a chance that we can get it reappropriated depending on where we are. I think our goal is to get those monies spent, but there's always a chance.
And what happens with the negotiations with the entire budget?
Yeah, I mean, they're always at risk, those general funds from being swept. And we
I've
always
seen that done.
argue that we hope they'll get spent on what they're for, but that's not up to us. Maybe Michelle would like to share her thoughts.
I'd say spend the money.
Yeah, we are trying to. spend.
No, but we obviously, there's always, it's Senator Pavley's aware, we can always have conversation about, encumbrance periods too. So
And projects
particularly if we're in the
funding.
process, if the board is in the process of upcoming, projects that we know
Yeah.
meet the requirements. So
And we
we
communicate.
work very closely to make sure that we're
And
Where
how
were
about
they coming from?
GGRF funds? Is that the same thing with the potential of pushing it into the general fund?
Those for sure, we have projects in the pipeline that we're going to bring to you in May. Those are being developed
Good.
right now. So,
Yes, I would suggest that.
so that will not disappear, I hope.
Great. Any other questions? All right. Moving on. Looks like we're at the consent calendar. So any changes to items 7 through 23?
So we've had some removed items. Shoot. Is 21 pulled off? Am I misremembering? No, that's not right. No. Everything's staying on. I'm confused. So I have nothing. Except confusion.
Okey doke. Any questions, board members? And if not,
You can do public comment on that, yep.
all right, let's do a public comment on items 7 through 23 on the consent calendar. If there's anyone in the room who would like to provide comments on any of these items, can you please line up at the podium? And if we can start to get a queue online for anyone who would like to comment on any of these items, please raise your hand and we'll get you in the queue. Thank you. Come on up. Oh, and let's try to keep to 2 minutes, please, for comments. Thank you.
I'll hit that. Good morning, everyone, board members, staff, council. My name is Terry Biancardi, and I'm the president of Team RCD. And I am here to support the I-15 Rainbow Canyon Wildlife Crossing Project. I've traveled from Southern California because I'm just so excited. Our board is just so excited at the opportunity to potentially work with you. This is a really important project for our region, for wildlife, and for people. We believe it will reduce conflict going forward. So I'm just super grateful that you're considering it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. All right. Don't be shy. If you're here, come on up. We want to hear from you.
I told Jen I wouldn't take up any time, but I've got to express gratitude to all of you. Ted Clement, Executive Director of Save Mount Diablo. And I just want to express my gratitude to the WCB, Eastern Contra Costa County Habitat Conservancy for agenda item number 16 on the consent agenda. As you can see on the screen right now, Curry Canyon Ranch is an incredible property, and your support of this project will help bring perpetual protection to some important land there and create funds for more conservation in the Diablo Range. We're incredibly grateful for your consideration of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. And I was reminded that this is another new stakeholder, newish group. That's what we want to see. We want to see folks from all different parts of the state coming here and introducing yourselves and bringing conservation and restoration projects to us so that we can get things going. So thank you. All right. Do we have anyone online to comment?
There are 3 raised hands.
All right.
Chuck Washington, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And it's a pleasure to be with you. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. My current title is Riverside County Supervisor, 3rd District. My region covers Temecula, Murrieta, Anza. The letters team stand for Temecula, Elsinore, Anza, Murrieta. I've lived in the region for 37 years, and I just want to say I can vouch for the good work that Team RCD is doing. We work closely with them in partnerships at the county. And I personally have known Terry Biancardi, the Team RCD leader, for more than 20 years. She is intelligent and forthright and someone who operates always in integrity. And we are so excited about the potential for a $4 million grant. We live in a beautiful region, and we continue to invest in it. And your support would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your comment. And who's next?
Laguna Foundation, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Good morning, board members. My name is Ann Morkill. I'm the executive director for the Laguna de Santa Rosa Foundation. And I just want to say thank you for consideration of our project for the Laguna de Santa Rosa Floodplain Restoration Planning Project. This is the first priority project from our restoration plan that was completed in 2024 under Sonoma Water and San Francisco Estuary Institute's partnership. And this is one of many projects that we envision within the Laguna de Santa Rosa floodplain in Sonoma County. And it's a critically important time for us to move these projects forward, as you know. And I just want to express great appreciation. This is the largest grant we've received at the Laguna de Santa Rosa Foundation. We've been around for 37 years. And it also is the largest contiguous restoration project that will be completed in the Laguna de Santa Rosa watershed, the first of many. I also want to acknowledge the great support and professionalism of Kara Allen and the other staff at the Wildlife Conservation Board, and just really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. So thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, who's next?
Aaron Gobb, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, or I should say morning, Chair Nagami, board members, and Dr. Norris. I'm here to also support item 9, the I-15 Rainbow Crossing project. And little introduction, I'm Aaron Gabby. Again, I'm the director of the Western Riverside Regional Conservation Authority, or the RCA. And we are a joint powers authority comprised of the County of Riverside and the 18 cities within Riverside County, or that is Western Riverside County. The RCA administers the Western Riverside Multiple Species Habitat Conservation Plan, developed in compliance with the California Natural Communities Conservation Planning Act and the Federal Endangered Species Act. Our plan protects populations and habitats for 146 sensitive plants and animals in the region through the creation of a 500,000 acre reserve system comprised of large blocks of interconnected habitats. This is an ongoing effort, and we anticipate completing the assembly of this reserve system by 2044. And this is a hugely ambitious effort that would not be possible without our committed long-term partners in state, federal, and local governments, our regional tribes, the private landowners, and the various conservation organizations that have supported us since our inception. Interstate 15 is a virtually impenetrable, deadly barrier to wildlife movement across the Santa Ana Mountains and the greater Santa Ana Palomar mountain linkage. The RCA and our partners, including the Nature Conservancy and Team RCD, have been actively acquiring and protecting habitat on both sides of I-15 to ensure that wildlife, and critically, the recently listed ESU of mountain lions, have this connected network of protected habitat across these mountains. The proposed rainbow crossing across I-15 is vital to restoring the movement and genetic connectivity across this barrier and linking their protected habitats. Without it, this regional population could go extinct within our lifetimes. The RCA strongly supports this project and urges the board to fund this project. The WCB, the Nature Conservancy, and Teams RCD have been vital partners with the RCA. We're grateful for your past and ongoing support to conserve and restore the unique landscapes and biodiversity of Western Riverside County, and especially this critical Rainbow Canyon Wildlife Crossing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments in the queue online?
There, we had one more hand go up after you asked.
Okay, great.
Joanne Rodriguez, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Good morning, board members. This is Joanne Rodriguez. I am a real estate broker with Mitigation Land Specialists. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to present the Sloan Canyon 85 acres near Sequan Peak Ecological Reserve. It's a fantastic property and big bang for your buck. For only $280,000, you can actually set aside 85 acres of 15 sensitive wildlife species and 13 sensitive plant species. Fantastic. It's adjacent to the Sequan Peak Reserve. It's also adjacent to other state of California lands. It's almost like a donut hole where it will actually close the loop on that habitat area. So we're very excited about the opportunity to be funded, and this acquisition will be fantastic for the habitat in the area. So thank you. That's item 614. Sorry. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Anyone else in the queue?
There are no raised hands.
All right. So why don't we close public comment? Does anyone want to make a motion on the consent items?
I'll move consent calendar.
And I'll second.
Member Gear,
Aye.
Member Termini. Aye. Member Nagami,
Aye.
Member Pavle,
Aye.
Member Peralt,
Aye.
Member Thomas. Motion passes.
All right, congratulations. Yeah, give it up. All right, let's move on to our presentation items, and we'll start with 24.
All right, our first presentation is on State Route 62 Wildlife Crossing Planning. Don Crocker will present.
For a cooperative project with the Coachella Valley Shovel-ready plans and designs for two proposed wildlife crossings over State Route 62 at the Morongo Grade and Yucca Grade that will reconnect wildlife habitat in the San Bernardino and Little San Bernardino Mountains, including the Sand to Snow National Monument, Joshua Tree National Park, and the San Gorgonio and Bighorn Wilderness areas near the towns of Morongo Valley and Yucca Valley in San Bernardino and Riverside counties. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. The project site is located where State Route 62 bisects the San Bernardino and Little San Bernardino Mountains and the numerous protected areas they contain. Prior to the construction of the highway, there was a seamless connection between the two mountain ranges that allowed wildlife to roam in search of feeding and breeding habitat. That migration is now constrained due to traffic volumes and safety improvements on SR 62, including concrete medians that have significantly impeded wildlife movement. This has led to the area being listed on CDFW's Wildlife Movement Barrier Priority List, indicating it is one of the highest priority barriers for remediation within the state. Work on this barrier began with the Caltrans funded study that found a complete barrier effect with no adequate crossing structures on the Morongo and Yucca grade segments of the highway, and recommended that wildlife crossing structures be constructed at each location to enhance and restore wildlife connectivity. Next slide, please. Here's what the project site looks like. The roadway is at least 4 lanes wide and traffic moves at freeway speed around the clock. The photo on the left is the Morongo grade. Here, SR 62 passes through a narrow canyon with steep cliffs that abut the roadway. This rugged terrain had precious few migration corridors before the highway was built. And with the development of SR 62, which was placed in areas that were important historical wildlife movement nodes, now has even fewer. The middle picture is the Yucca grade, which has similar topography to the Morongo grade and suffers the same lack of connectivity. The photo also shows the concrete median that divides much of the highway. At places, this median is upward of 4.5 feet tall, and this is too high for most local species to cross. The result is that any animal that finds itself on the roadway will be trapped in a narrow canyon with little to no options for crossing to safety. The picture on the right is the Morongo Valley. The valley is the relatively flat area between the two mountainous grades. At first glance, it may seem as if this would be an ideal migration corridor, but the region is actually fairly well developed. The residential developments here may be low density, but they form a contiguous block that takes up most of the valley floor. These homesteads come with fencing that prevents even wildlife accustomed to human presence from crossing through the area. Next slide, please. This project will build upon the recommendations in the Caltrans study and develop the plans necessary to construct 2 wildlife overpasses. One at the Morongo grade, which is the lower red star on the map, and one at the Yucca grade, which is the upper star. This includes outreach to wildlife, land use, and transportation agencies, landowners and managers, tribes and conservation organizations in the region. It also means developing 35 and 65% designs for 2 overpass structures, completing environmental review and permitting, and initiating Caltrans documentation that will be needed to start construction. This will bring the overpass project status to shovel-ready, meaning that once the project you are considering today is complete, the next step will be to apply for implementation funding. Next slide, please. Unlike a lot of the wildlife connectivity projects that you're considered in the past that focus on a single species, such as genetically imperiled mountain lions in the coastal ranges or ungulate herds in the eastern Sierras, this project addresses the needs of multiple sensitive species, including desert bighorn sheep, mule deer, mountain lion, bear, bobcat, and desert tortoise. These animals will benefit from a pair of dedicated wildlife overpass several ways. First, they will prevent many of the vehicle wildlife collisions that killed numerous animals and present a risk to human safety. Second, by improving connectivity, animals will have greater access to breeding opportunities that will help ensure the wildlife population's genetic health is as robust as possible. And third, they will provide climate change refugia by allowing plants and animals to move north in latitude or up in elevation over a 10,000-foot elevation gradient. Therefore, staff recommends the project be approved as proposed. In the audience is Gary Hunn from the Mojave Desert Land Trust, who would like to address the board before we take your questions. Thank you.
Great, come on up. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Executive Director Norris, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm with Mojave Desert Land Trust, and on behalf of our organization and our many partners and supporters, we're very grateful to you for considering this application. It's incredibly important to desert connectivity and the entire region. Mojave Desert Land Trust has been working on conservation for more than 2 decades in this area, including acquiring private inholdings within public land at the site of one of the crossings. So this really will provide an opportunity to restore connectivity where it has largely been lost, in a very important regional linkage that is part of an interconnected system from Canada to Mexico. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Don. Any board member questions? Go ahead, Fran. Oh, you were like, you made a movement toward your button.
I'd
All right.
just like to
Yep.
comment on the impressive number of support letters that you received. It was a lot of reading, but obviously there's a lot of support for this project. So thank you for making that effort.
Thank you. Oh, and I did want to thank Don for his great support and professionalism during the application process.
Okay, thank you. No more board questions or discussion? Okay, why don't we,
I'd like to move approval of this item.
well, we gotta do public comment.
Oh,
first.
but public,
Yeah.
after public
After
comment.
public,
of course.
okay.
But I have
Good to
one,
know.
just comment on, that's very exciting. And the planning grant is important because it was a little over 10 years ago, the one in the Liberty Canyon Wildlife Crossing, a planning grant helped get us going. And we hope by the end of this year, it'll be fully open, not only over the 101, but the local arterials to connect to the open space all the way from potentially the ocean and north to Las Padres Forest. So it can be done, but there's a lot of work ahead that have to have that planning grant.
Thanks, Fran. All right, anyone in the room wish to comment on this item? Seeing none. Any commenters in the queue online?
There is 2 raised hands. Christina Aiello, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to offer a public comment on this project. I'm a wildlife biologist with Wildlands Network and a resident of the project region. And I just want to say that this crossing project is one of those that you don't really need to think hard about to support because there's a wide variety of ecological and social reasons. This is really important. The ecological importance has been highlighted by Don and Geary, but I also want to show that or mention that this area is a growing travel corridor as this highway allows both residents to access resources that aren't available in these small desert towns, but also travelers to come access and recreate our amazing national parks and national monuments in the area. So we need these travelers to both be safe, but we also need to preserve the wildlife that is so important and special in this region and part of these protected landscapes. So I'm very excited to see this on your agenda, and I am strongly in favor of this project.
Thank you so much.
Scott Quinnell, you should also be able to unmute yourself.
Hello, this is Scott Quinnell with Caltrans District 8 San Bernardino, Senior Environmental Scientist. I just would like to thank you for your support and evaluation of the funding for this State Route 62 wildlife planning phase project. Been working with Gary Hunt for many years and highly respect the Mojave Desert Land Trust's professionalism, ability to work on this project. And so thank you so much. I appreciate your support about the I-15 Rainbow Crossing as well.
Great, thank you for the comment. All right. Seemed like, Fran, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Thank you very much. I'd be delighted to move file item 24. That's the Wildlife Crossing Planning Grant.
I would second that motion.
Member Gear,
Aye.
Member Termini,
Aye.
Member Nagami,
Aye.
Member Pavle,
Aye.
Member Peralt,
Aye.
Member Thomas,
Aye.
motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. All right, let's move on to the next item.
Great. So Spanish Ranch has been withdrawn. So we're moving on to River West Core Project. We have Erin Aquino Carhart presenting. Hello.
Good morning, everyone.
Can I say something before you start? I just want to flag this for the board. I might have mentioned this when I spoke to you individually. So this is a project that WCB administers on behalf of, maybe you're going to say this too, the San Joaquin River Conservancy. So just keep that in mind. It's one of these programs that we administer in partnership with another conservancy. Thank you.
Sure, and I can speak more to that if you have any questions. So this proposal is to consider an allocation for an implementation grant to the City of Fresno for a cooperative project to construct new public access amenities, including 2 river access points, parking, a restroom, and a multi-use trail. And the project is located on Weber Rest, which is a jointly publicly and privately owned land between Highway 41 and Spano Park within the City of Fresno in Fresno County. And I wanted to draw your attention to the bold line to the right. That is the existing Lewis E. Eaton Trail, which is part of this project as well. So we are extending the Eaton Trail and connecting to Woodward Park, which is on the map as well, which is one of the largest city parks in the region and extremely popular. So super excited to have those 2 properties connected. Next slide, please. So furthering that context that Dr. Norris provided, we are, so the Conservancy and WCB are sibling entities under Resources Agency. So we work in partnership to develop the grants that I administer on their behalf. And the mission of the Conservancy is to develop a parkway along the San Joaquin River in the Fresno and Madera counties between Highway 99 and Friant Dam, which is a 22-mile stretch of the San Joaquin River. So excited to be here. I don't talk to you guys very often. The last few projects have been on consent, so forgive my chattiness, but I'm just very enthusiastic. And also further context, although the Conservancy does own these properties and for the purposes of both conservation and public access, they are not permitted to open properties to the public unless they are maintenanced. So this is also why these projects are so important for the continuous creation of this parkway. And so the Conservancy Board approved this project in October. And so this is the process that we go through, that both the Conservancy staff and WCB staff review each project and vet them. And then once they are approved, they go to each of our boards. So Conservancy Board goes first, and then it's your turn. So this is considered the core project of a larger overall River West Fresno Eaton Trail extension project. So we have actually, we as in WCB, paid for the planning aspect of this project for the entirety of the build. The core project is one specific portion and will be phased for the entirety of the build upon available funding. So this is an extremely high priority for the Conservancy and many people in the region. The River West area is often considered the parkway. And so developing it would increase activation and public access in the area. And again, further develops the parkway and promotes connectivity between these public space areas and access to the river. And for the photo there, that is actually next to Highway 41. And this is where the new Woodward West access point would be. So this would have a parking lot, a bathroom, and other amenities. Next slide, please. So to repeat myself, these are the different public access improvements that the project will construct. I do want to correct myself because unfortunately in the agenda write-up, I have the incorrect mileage and length of the trail. And so I unfortunately wasn't able to correct that before everything was shared with the public. But it is 2.4 miles multi-use accessible trails. And the number that I did include would be extended to the parking structures and also the pedestrian stairway. So there will also be an access point from where the picture is. Actually, this is from Spano Park on Palm Avenue. This is where they will have the pedestrian access point with a stairway and bike rail. And as you can see, this is currently a fairly steep slope. In addition to the Conservancy's properties not being open to the public, it's also not really safe or feasible for people to access, even if it was open. There are current communal trails that people use and can access from one of the existing access points at Riverview Drive. But again, there's very limited parking. These trails are unpaved and subject to the flows of the river as well. Next slide, please. So this is a map of the project to show you the layout of the trail extension. And just again, to orient you, we're now looking as if we're facing the river. So north is kind of that way. And the existing trail that I had shown you in the first map would be just to the lower right of this image. So that's where this the new Woodward Park or the Woodward West entry point would connect back to Woodward Park. So there will be an extension of a sidewalk to connect the trails, and so that you can walk or bike between these parks. And the pink line is the new trail. I also wanted to highlight that they will have a bus turnaround as well, so they can accommodate school children or perhaps in the future, city transit as well. And also they will have different safety features such as lighting, and the different blue squares are fire hydrants. Next slide, please. So staff recommends the board approve the project as proposed. And on the line, we have Jason Miller, who is the project manager for the city of Fresno. Their contractor, Michael Osborne with Provost and Pritchard, and Carrie Dinesca, the executive officer of the San Joaquin River Conservancy.
Questions?
Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Erin.
Yeah.
Do they want to say anything, or are they just here for questions?
They're here for questions.
For questions, okay,
I believe so.
great. Sounds like an incredible project benefiting justice communities. Very exciting. Board members have any questions, discussion? Seeing none. Great. Let's move to public comment. Anyone here in the room like to comment? Come on up. Thank you.
Good morning, Sharon Weaver with the San Joaquin River Parkway and Conservation Trust. And when I looked at the agenda item, I saw there were no support letters listed. And so I thought it's really important for you to know how many people support this project. This is a project that our community has been waiting for more than 2 decades. And we are so excited that we're getting close to construction. We're hearing that construction may actually begin this summer. And so I just want you to know there are thousands of people in the Fresno and Madera metropolitan region that are looking forward to using this trail system and seeing this project come to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for being here. Anyone else in the room? Okay, how about online? Anyone in the queue?
There are no raised hands.
Okay. Let's close public comment and further board discussion, or can we hear motion?
I'm happy to move approval.
I will second.
Seconded.
All right, go for it. Thank you. All right, let's have a roll call.
Member Gear,
Aye.
Member Termini,
Aye.
Member Nagami, Member Pavle,
Aye.
Member Peralt,
Aye.
Member Thomas,
Aye.
motion passes.
Great. Congratulations. Thank you, Erin. Yes. I like the clapping.
I know, it's nice. Says like a Super Bowl. All right, our next project is the Watsonville Slough Trails and Gateway Project. Alyssa Benedetti is going to present. I just want to flag for the board that we did receive a letter of support from Senator John Laird this week. This is another great equity and access project. So thanks, Alyssa.
So this is to consider a grant to the Land Trust of Santa Cruz County for a public access infrastructure project at Watsonville Slough Farm, which is a 490-acre property located just on the outskirts of the city of Watsonville and bordering CDFW's Watsonville Slough Ecological Reserve. The project will create free access to nature with bilingual environmental interpretation and education opportunities for Watsonville's diverse and historically under-resourced community. Next slide, please. So the Land Trust acquired this property for conservation in 2010 with funding from WCB as well as other agencies. And since its acquisition, 100 acres of wetlands and coastal grasslands have been restored on site. And while about 200 acres still remain in production as organic farmland, which is leased to local growers. This project will bring to fruition the remaining goal for this property from the original acquisition, which was opening it to the public for outdoor recreation. And the project was also designed through a very robust community engagement process, which was the planning phase was funded by WCB and Coastal Conservancy. Next slide, please. The centerpiece of the project is the Community Harvest Gateway, featuring public amenities, restroom, drinking water, picnic area, amphitheater style seating, and a trailhead with trail maps and bilingual signage. And I just want to note quickly, the project also will include free U-Pick gardens around the gateway, which is not part of the WCB funded scope, but it was something that came out of the community engagement process since it is such a highly agricultural area and there's no farms really around the town that are open to the public. So people just really wanted that experience. The gateway is where all visitors will enter the property and embark on their choice of activities, whether they're staying just around this area for a picnic or an interpretive program, or whether they venture off farther on the property for a longer hike. And additionally, the city of Watsonville is implementing a companion project for a bike and pedestrian path that will come from the city and past the Pajaro Valley High School, which is just up the road, and straight to the site. And that's fully funded, and I believe that will be implemented this coming year. Next slide. 5 miles of trails and boardwalks will take hikers around the slough and offer views of the restored wetland and grassland habitats. Wildlife viewing platforms will be installed along the trail network to allow for close-up views and fishing access. The trail system will actually be among the largest in southern Santa Cruz County, which is lacking in outdoor recreation opportunities compared with the northern part of the county. There will also be a secondary picnic area and restroom that can be accessed by a short loop trail from the gateway, and interpretive signage at key points along the whole trail network. Next slide. And finally, activating this site for public access will just create so many opportunities for public engagement and education. The Land Trust is partnering with a number of local organizations, one of them being the Land Trust of the Ama Mutsun Tribal Band, which this property is actually part of their ancestral territory, and they will have cultural access to, special cultural access to the site. And the Land Trust plans to basically share space and resources with all of these partners to be able to offer year-round programming for students, families, and those from under-resourced communities. So, and I will introduce now Brian Largay, who is the Conservation Director at the Land Trust of Santa Cruz County. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Welcome.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to address you about this project. We are so excited about it. And Brian Largay, Conservation Director, Land Trust of Santa Cruz County. We're an organization that has 3 pillars to our mission: biodiversity conservation, working lands conservation, and access to nature for all. And this property really brings all of that together all in one place in a very exciting way. And we want to acknowledge the longstanding partnership with the Wildlife Conservation Board, which helped us purchase the property 15 years ago and do all of this really exciting restoration work. One of the neat things that's going on here is demonstrating wildlife compatible agriculture and leveraging the opportunity to work side by side with the growers who operate the land. The local community is about 20% farm workers, and there's a lot of agricultural know-how in our community, and yet very limited access to land. This picture actually demonstrates some of it in a pretty neat way. This is a very steep hillside over these sloughs, and it was quite steep and hard to farm. And the former landowner required the growers to pay rent on this acreage, even if they didn't really want to farm it. And we took that land out of production and then worked with their local seedling grower and farm crews to grow 200,000 native grass plugs and wildflower bulbs, which they planted with their farm crew in a day and a half over 12 acres. And it's now this spectacular restored coastal prairie. And one of the recreational trails will actually wind through this restored landscape. And there's a whole bunch of other conservation practices demonstrating how farming and thriving coastal habitat can exist side by side in ways that are really exciting. We're going to have a whole interpretive signage system to hopefully change some of the narrative about how we get food off the land. I want to point out that this isn't a hobby farm. 100 people earn their living on this land. It produces about $10 million a year in produce. And the Farm Bureau has their annual dinner on the property. And so it's fully integrated with all different aspects of the agricultural community. So at any rate, we're really excited to finally get the public out here where they can see, we had a bald eagle swoop down and rake grass thatch from one of these restored fields and carry it off to its nest at the CDFW preserve next door. And it'll just be a breathtaking place for people to connect with nature, get outside, and appreciate some of the opportunity that we have through working together. Thanks for your support. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right. Any questions from the board? Discussion?
I had a question. Excuse me. I had a question from the gentleman with the land trust there. Do you see acquiring and restoring a lot of the farmland in that area, not only in the city limits of Watsonville, but the adjacent and unincorporated areas, like north of Carlton or more towards the ocean, I suppose?
Yes, in fact, in partnership with Wildlife Conservation Board, we and the State Coastal Conservancy, we're launching what we call the Resilient Pajaro Estuary Program, where we've purchased farmland right at the confluence of the Pajaro River and the Watsonville Slough. We're working through various other funding measures, but the idea there too is to take the marginal farmland out of production. The growers don't want to farm it, buy out the landowner interests so that they don't need to make income off that land anymore, and then do restoration. We think that through that we can increase the acreage of coastal wetlands in Santa Cruz County by about 25 to 30% over the next 3 to 5 years. And we're really looking forward to rolling out those projects. We're mid-planning process on that with a great technical advisory committee and a lot of enthusiasm from the agricultural community, which really doesn't need to be farming marginal lands in a overdrafted groundwater basin with a lot of flood problems.
That was what I was going to bring up, because there's ongoing problems that are getting more severe on overdrafted groundwater basins, combined with saltwater intrusion.
That's right. Yep.
But potential is there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this
Thank
is
you.
saving 1 million gallons a year of water, excuse me, 100 million gallons a year of water in that system.
Good. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, let's move to public comment. Anyone in the room wish to comment? Hey, see no hands. How about online? Anyone in the queue?
There are no raised hands.
No raised hands, great. Sounds like a wonderful project. Anyone interested in making a motion?
I'm happy to make a motion. This is a very exciting project. What a great partnership. It's really excellent. So I'm happy to make the motion on this item.
Great, we have a motion.
I'm
I'll
happy to
second.
Sorry. No,
All
I
right.
just want to say that I think it was 30 years ago, the Watsonville Watch people took me out there begging for help when I worked at the Coastal Conservancy. And it's so amazing to see how much has happened. I mean, 30 years is a long time, but it takes a long time. So congratulations for all the work you've put in. And, you know, I hope we see more projects like this.
Terrific. All right, let's have a roll call vote.
Member Gear,
Aye.
Member Termini,
Aye.
Member Nagami,
Aye.
Member Pavle,
Aye.
Member Peralt,
Aye.
Member Thomas.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Congratulations.
One great project after another. Don't forget it. Okay, next we have Aaron Heyman talking about the LaGrange Salmonid Habitat Restoration Phase 2A project. Didn't we have an agreement we were going to have shorter titles?
We may have discussed that at some point. Thank you, Jen. Hello, board members. Good morning. This proposal is to consider a project on the Tuolumne River in Stanislaus County on property owned in part by Stanislaus County, by a private landowner, and also by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. The proposal would allocate $3,654,000 in funds for an implementation grant to the Yosemite Rivers Alliance for the benefit of Chinook salmon and steelhead. One note, the applicant organization is currently wrapping up a name change, and so you may see some points in the board materials referencing the Tuolumne Land Trust. That's the old name. They are now the Yosemite Rivers Alliance. We will certainly be using that name going forward. Next slide. The Tuolumne River is an important waterway for many migratory salmonids, including steelhead, fall run Chinook salmon, and also excitingly, spring run Chinook salmon. Spring run Chinook salmon used to be the most numerous run of salmon in the Central Valley of California. However, a combination of climate change impacts, land use, habitat destruction, et cetera, has driven this population down to the point where it is now federally listed as threatened under both the federal and state Endangered Species Acts. So to have spring run on this river marks a really exciting development for this imperiled population. The project will occur along approximately a quarter mile of the Tuolumne River and the 5 acres of the surrounding, now disconnected floodplains. The area has been heavily impacted by historic gold mining tailings and also gravel extraction, which has resulted in a river morphology that is overly straight, overly simple, having little vegetation and cover, having little connection to its floodplain, which have all resulted in relatively low value for migratory salmonids. Next slide. This project will reshape the area to increase river complexity by building an entirely new river meander and also adding riffles, pools, gravel bars, woody debris, native vegetation in the riparian corridor, and also grading and sort of re-sculpting the banks to reconnect the river to its historic floodplain. Next slide. This project will support the California Salmon Strategy actions by designing and implementing components that benefit the spawning and rearing needs of migratory Chinook, fall run, and spring run, and steelhead. Staff recommends that the board approve the project as proposed, and in the audience is Julia Steffens of the Yosemite Rivers Alliance to aid in answering questions.
Thank you, Aaron. Any questions from board members? I don't hear any questions. All right, why don't we move to public comment? Anyone in the room wish to comment on this item? Would you like to come on up?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Julia Stevens. I'm the Restoration Program Director at Yosemite Rivers Alliance. I really appreciate your consideration today. It's been a really long journey getting to this stage. This is the most major source of funding we've received to implement this project to date. It's part of a multi-phase restoration plan that we hope to be finished implementing by 2019, 2020. We completed phase 1 last year, which included removing an old haul road from the river, an amazing amount of concrete and sheet piling, as well as restoring 5 acres of floodplain and new gravel, new riffles, et cetera. So moving to this next stage is just building on that momentum. Upstream and downstream, there's additional projects that are planned on MID, TID land, as well as on private property owners' land. So it's ultimately going to result in a really almost landscape level section of river that has been restored to benefit salmon, trout, and all the species that benefit from that healthy habitat. So I just wanted to thank you and see if you had any other questions while I'm here.
Thank you. That's amazing. How many phases total are there in the plan?
Well, there's 3 phases, but as you can see, we're on phase 2A. I'm working with Department of Water Resources on an application for 2B that we're hoping to implement next year. And I have a feeling phase 3 will be phase 3A and 3B. It's just obviously costs a lot of money to do these projects. So, trying to put it into small, accomplishable, and independently beneficial phases has been our focus.
Seems like a smart approach. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right. Okay. Appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Why don't we move to online comments? Anyone in the queue online?
There are no raised hands.
Okay. Any further board discussion? If not, I'm happy to entertain a motion. All right. I will make a motion to approve this item. Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it's okay if you wanted this to move forward.
No, if you're online, we'd love to hear from you if you're interested.
Who are we waiting for online?
That's Ron Zanker. They can't hear him.
Ron Zanker?
Maybe you have it.
Yeah, they are online. I can provide permission to talk.
Thanks so much.
Okay, Ron Thinker, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, Ron. No pressure to speak. If you would like to provide any comment, you're welcome to. We'd love to hear from you, but don't feel pressure just because everyone in this room is waiting with bated breath. Maybe
I'm
Ron's
not sure
feeling a little
that
shy.
his mic he was unmuted and then muted, and I didn't hear, so let's see.
Okay. All right. Well, I was in the middle of making a motion to approve this item.
Second.
All right, let's have a roll call.
Member Gear,
Aye.
Member Termini,
Aye.
Member Nagami,
Aye.
Member Pavle,
Aye.
Member Peralt,
Aye.
Member Thomas. The motion passes.
All right, congratulations. Where's the clapping?
Yeah. All right, great. Thank you. Next we have Kara Allen to present the Puda Cache Watershed Arundo Eradication Phase 2 project. Also a long title. We're going to talk about that later. Just kidding.
Right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jen. So agenda item 29 is a request from the Yolo County RCD for 1.8 million to control Arundo along 19 miles of Puda Creek in Yolo County and to restore 10 acres of riparian habitat on public land at 2 sites along the creek. This is the second phase of the RCD's Putah Cache Watershed Arundo Eradication Program that under our Prop 1 program, we funded the planning and development for, as well as its first phase of implementation. Next slide. This map shows where Arundo was treated under phase 1, which are the green areas, which totals about 87 acres. And then the red areas are where treatment's still needed, and that totals about 190 acres in the county. The line at the very bottom is Putah Creek, and phase 2 will build off the successes of phase 1 and continue treating Arundo downstream of Winters. Phase 2 is focusing on Putah Creek because full eradication of Arundo is highly likely along Putah Creek, all the way from where it comes out of Lake Berryessa to its terminus at the Yolo Bypass Wildlife Area. And also, Putah Creek is one of 2 vital corridors in the county that provide contiguous habitat from the coastal hills in the west to the Sacramento River in the east, and it's also the county's one and only home for Chinook salmon that have been returning to Putah Creek every year in increasing numbers to spawn. Next slide, please. So this is a before and after picture from phase 1 that shows the impact of this work. This site is along Pleasance Creek, which is a tributary of Putah Creek. And this site actually recovered with natives all on its own because they were still in the system and just needed to be released from competition with Arundo. And this is what we can expect to occur at many of the sites along phase 2. Next slide. And these are pictures of some of the Arundo stands that will be treated under phase 2, which you can see occur anywhere from within the channel to the creek's upper terraces. And removing these large patches of Arundo will improve the climate resiliency along Putah Creek by reducing fire risk, freeing water from uptake by Arundo, and also allowing water to move more freely between the upper banks of the creek during high flow events, which will reduce erosion and also re-wet more of the channel, which is really important for sustaining riparian habitat, especially under future projected climate conditions. Next slide, please. And these are pictures of the 2 5-acre restoration sites. One is the El Rio Villa property, which provides housing for migrant workers. And the other site is at the UC Davis Putah Creek Riparian Preserve. Now, both these sites are currently dominated by non-native trees and forbs, and they also lack a mid-story layer that is common in our riparian communities. So after controlling the most aggressive weeds at both sites, they will be actively planted with a mix of native trees, shrubs, sedges, grasses, and forbs for pollinators, and they will also be maintained and monitored for 3 years under the grant. Now, the community and local students will be invited to participate in planting days at both these sites. And this will include Native people from the Yocho Dehe Winton Nation, who is a project funder and has been a big supporter of the RCD's work in the county, as well as on their ancestral lands, which includes the Putah Creek watershed. So in addition to the ecological uplift and climate resiliency that this project will provide, it's also enhancing access to nature for residents at the El Rio Villa property because a thick layer of wood chips will be laid along 1,900 feet of foot trail that will create easy and safe access to the creek for residents, for them to enjoy the creek during hot summer days, and also to just enjoy and appreciate nature that's in their backyard. Next slide. And these are pictures of some other residents along Putah Creek that were taken by researchers and UC Davis students that do the annual biomonitoring along Putah Creek that's been ongoing since 1999. And I know the picture at the bottom right's hard to see, but there's a really cool story behind that one. So that's the first documented badger along Putah Creek that was taken at Russell Ranch. And then the picture above it is from the same game camera and is of a great horned owl using the badger's dirt mound to dust bathe. And, you know, it's these types of behaviors and habitat associations that this project is going to be supporting by improving habitat from below ground and within the creek channel to the tree canopy. that so many fauna rely on for their daily needs and breeding and migratory needs. And that does it for me, but we do have a few people in the audience today. We have Heather Nichols she's the Executive Director of the Yolo County RCD. She's here to answer any questions. We also have somebody online, Nina Suzuki with UC Davis, representing the Russell Ranch site. And then we also have Chris Rose, the Executive Director from the Solano County RCD, who's a big project partner and funder of this project, who would actually like to address the board.
Thank you, Kara. Yes, we'll always take clapping. Yes. Welcome.
Hi there, y'all. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I just got reinvigorated and excited about this possible project that is up for funding. Again, my name is Chris Rose. I'm Executive Director for the Solano Resource Conservation District. And Kara kind of said it all about the project. Really excited about spending this time on the creek and really involving the community in a real way. And working with our partners from the Water Agency, the RCDs, UC Davis, Yoshidea, the Winton Nation, and the Housing Authority at El Rio Villa. It's a really exciting project. And I know sometimes when you're talking about Arundo, it's like, great, another Arundo project. But the reason I'm really excited about this project and why obviously I fully endorse this project as someone that's applied for it, or assisted YOLO RCD applying for it, who's the lead on this project, is because we can actually control it in this section. We can legitimately say that with the efforts that have gone on with YOLO RCD, Solano RCD, and the Water Agency and others for the past 10 years, that from Pleasants Creek and Puda Creek and above Winters all the way to YOLO Bypass, we can actually eradicate Arundo. And then with ongoing support from the Water Agency and others, whether it's the weed management area or other funding, we can stay on top of it is what it takes. So I feel strongly that we can actually accomplish what we're setting out to do. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Anyone else want to? Okay.
We have
answering questions, great.
Tanya Meyer on here as well, and she's unmuted, so
Great.
see if we can hear her.
Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, the host asked me to speak, so I would just like to echo what Chris Rose so eloquently said. I've been involved in the planning process of this since 2017 of the Arundo control, and it's a great project. And like Chris says, we can actually eradicate this plant from this creek, which really needs a lot of native plants because it's surrounded by ag and doesn't have a lot of habitat. It's really important thread of habitat through a bunch of ag land in the Central Valley. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Ian Evans is also on the line. I believe he's involved as well.
All right, go for it. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I'm Ian Evans. I'm the Executive Director of Yolo County Housing. We have the property El Rio Villa that was mentioned a few times, and the overview of the project did a great job, highlighting this. But just from our residents' perspective, it's a extremely low, very low income community, very rural. And I think the benefits for this community in terms of access to Puda Creek, the salmon spawning there for the first time in years was mentioned. I think that provides, just an amazing opportunity for our residents to have better access to nature. We know that creates, more healthy living environments. And what I was particularly impressed with in the presentation here and this project is that it's also going to involve, get our residents and local students involved. And so we're helping get folks out there, our youth get involved, get some education around, what's happening at Puda Creek, why it's important. Being a longtime Yolo County resident, I've even learned a whole lot through this project and other projects we've done in and around Puda Creek the last couple of years. So thank you for the consideration of this project, and kudos to the team for putting it together.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. All right, anyone else for the presentation? Okay. All right, we'll move to board questions and comments.
I had a comment, having lived in Davis with Totnes part of for 4 years, so I know Putah Creek too well. But I was surprised, I don't think I've seen over the years funding from Prop 117, or I can't remember it, for Arundo eradication. Is that something that's, there's still revenue left over? Because I know Arundo, because of the wildfire issue, but the watershed cleanup and how it affects groundwater and everything is a big issue in Ventura County and other counties up and down the coast. I was wondering if there was additional funding, or was it a special category of fund that was triggered? This was Arundo eradication that caught my attention.
I think the question is there other money for Arundo eradication
Yeah.
statewide?
Yeah, statewide.
Dedicated funding, I mean, through the weed management areas, I think it's funding through CDFA. They give funding to different weed management areas that can go towards Arundo control. But within WCB, we don't have any dedicated funds
Through
for.
RCDs, or does it go through Resource Conservation
If they
District?
apply. So it's from the Department of Food and Ag.
Okay.
Has that money.
Oh,
And I would say WCB, I did give kind of Kara the stink eye when she presented this to me, because I was like, isn't this kind of a hopeless case? But she made the case that this was actually a really important habitat area, that we have the chance to actually be successful. It'll be really important for salmon. So for WCB, it's really a holistic look at what the actual value of this is for wildlife. And clearly this one has that. Not that eradicating Arundo everywhere wouldn't be beneficial, but this one just really was one of the best opportunities to really make
really
progress.
invasive, taking
Yeah, it's
over
really a challenge.
all the water districts are concerned.
Yeah, it's a
with
super
it,
big challenge, so.
as well as more and more fire.
So we try to be
Chris.
choosy about which ones we fund, because we could
Okay.
spend all our money
Okay.
probably on Arundo.
All right. I'm looking at Catherine Moore on that.
I'll just add to more, further answer your question. We do have some wildlife, some WMA funds that are going to go as match in some of the areas. And then I wanted to also point out that we have the permits in place. We have all the landowner agreements in place. There's over 300 all told. So we're ready to go. So it is one of those opportunities that we're really looking forward to.
Okay, thank you. I also just wanted to acknowledge and thank you all for the very comprehensive herbicide responses. This board has been attentive to herbicide issues in the past, and we were asking for this information through this questionnaire. So the care and attention you put into it, I think I understand it. Open to further questions, but just really appreciate you taking that seriously and putting all that information in there. Appreciate it. All right, why don't we move to public comment? Anyone in the room wish to comment on this item? All right, seeing no one. How about, is there anyone in the queue to provide comment?
There are no raised hands.
Okie doke. Any further discussion, questions at the board? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move the item. It looks like another great partnership, so love to see that.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's hear the roll call, Mary, please. Thanks.
Member Gear,
Aye.
Member Termini,
Aye.
Member Nagami,
Aye.
Member Pavley,
Aye.
Member Peralt,
Aye.
Member Thomas.
Aye.
The motion passes.
All right, congratulations.
All right, wonderful. Geneva Iverson Krampitz is going to present the Mark West Creek and Wetland Restoration Project.
Don't need that. Okay.
Hey, good morning. I actually have good afternoon on this, but I'm glad it's still morning. So, this is the Mark West Creek and Wetland Restoration Project. It's coming from Sonoma County Regional Parks, and they're requesting 1.5 million approximately, and they have a pretty significant amount of cost share, which brings the total project up to 1.8. Sonoma County Parks also owns this property, which is of note because a lot of these kind of holistic watershed projects have a lot of piecemealing with their landowners. So this is a really good opportunity to have a giant chunk of property that's going to be all under one umbrella of restoration. Next slide, please. So the project's namesake, Mark West Creek, is an essential tributary to the Russian River. It's a stronghold for salmonids within the Russian River, despite all that's happened with climate change and water scarcity. But it too is increasingly suffering from declining stream flows, stream disconnection during the dry season, and that really threatens the site's ability to support salmonids long term. So to address declining conditions, restoration activities are going to be all under this umbrella of process-based restoration, which is like, again, kind of this holistic look at the watershed and re-implementing the historic processes. So, you know, raising the channels up so they're not in size, reconnecting floodplains, reconnecting to wetlands, removing fish barriers, et cetera. And so this project does a little bit of all of that. The site is about 1,192 acres total, and they're going to be doing removal of flashy fuels, and those flashy fuels are actually going to be used to do the brush packing in channels for placing large woody debris, things like that, which just creates, you know, raises the bed, aggrades sediment, and provides salmon habitat. And they're going to be placing beaver dam analog structures to assist in reactivating wet meadows and floodplains of the site. I believe it's about 10 throughout the whole area. And then there's 2 relic concrete dams on site as well. So one's going to be removed entirely and the other one's going to be notched so that fish can access upstream habitat from those areas. And then before, during, and after implementation, they're going to be completing monitoring to evaluate the impact of the process-based restoration work. So that includes stream flow and groundwater monitoring and snorkel surveys for salmonids. They'll also be placing 2 interpretive signs on the site because, as I mentioned, this is owned by Sonoma County Regional Parks, and they're in the process of making this accessible to the public. So when the public gets in there, they'll be like, oh, here's this beautiful sign that explains all of the beautiful restoration work that's happening here, and that's why it's important. And then kind of going further onto that, they're going to be working with local landowners to host at least one workshop over the course of the project to explain how this process-based restoration works and how they could implement it on their land as well. Next slide. So once implemented, this project will provide access to an additional 4 miles of upstream habitat. That's via the dam notching and removal of the other dam. They'll also be directly enhancing over 5,200 linear feet of waterways. Restoration work will significantly decrease fuels within the preserve and decrease future fire risk. The site already had a pretty severe fire that went through it right before they acquired it. So they're kind of also like working on remediating that, making sure it doesn't happen again. In-stream work will ameliorate further channel incision and aggrade sediment, slowing and spreading water across the 1,192 acre preserve. And that'll increase water availability for salmonids, improve their habitat conditions, especially during the dry season. And then the signage will be encouraging visitors to respect and protect wetlands and creek habitat within the park, and educational outreach will assist in spreading this work throughout the county and beyond. So staff requests the board approves this project as proposed. And with me in the audience right there is Manova Heveland, who is the project manager at Sonoma County Sonoma County Regional Parks.
Thank you, Geneva. Any questions at the board?
I actually had a question. So yeah, I thought this was part of the area that had burns before. So how much of the park was affected by those previous burns? And so are you just sort of essentially dealing with what, 10 years worth of growth of, or, you know, how How much of that work is to be done?
Almost all of the park was burned in the Tubbs fire, so, and burned very severely. So there's been some regeneration of the redwood trees, but there's a lot of standing dead Douglas fir trees that we have to deal with. And yeah, it's in fire recovery mode, and we are very excited to be implementing this process-based restoration, utilizing some of the woody debris, a small portion of the woody debris that's on the site, to restore the incised channels. You know, and also some larger woody debris in Mill Creek. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions at the board level? Okay. All right. We'll move on to public comment. Anyone in the room wish to comment on this item? Seeing no hands. How about in the queue online? Do we have any public comment?
There are no raised hands.
Okay. Any further questions, discussion at the board level? Otherwise, happy to entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Michelle
Michelle
moved and Karen seconded. Thank you, Mary.
Member Garrett,
Aye.
Member Termini,
Aye.
Member Nagami,
Aye.
Member Pavle,
Aye.
Member Peralt,
Aye.
Member Thomas. Motion passes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, the Colby Mountain project is, we're holding that, withdrawing at this time. We're going to move on to number 32, habitat incentive programs for water birds. I want to just flag for you that we had some letters that are in your board packet, but they were not listed properly in the agenda. So we have letters from Kurt Richter, the Vice President of Richter Ag Incorporated, and Ricardo Ortega, General Manager of the Grassland Water District, letters of support. Thanks. And James Croft, take it away.
Good morning. This proposal is to consider a legislatively directed allocation for a grant to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife for a project to support land incentive programs that encourage private landowners to create migratory bird habitat within California's Central Valley. California's Central Valley is a critically important region in the Pacific Flyway, supporting an estimated, next slide, please. There we go. Supporting an estimated 60% of water birds throughout the year. Given that California has lost 95% of its historic wetlands, creating and maintaining wetland habitats is vital for the survival of both migratory and resident water birds. The private land incentive programs outlined in this presentation will create seasonal habitat throughout the Central Valley to meet the habitat requirements of a wide variety of migratory bird species. For example, in the fall and spring, all water birds require stopover habitat to rest and refuel during migration. However, migratory shorebirds migrate earlier in the fall, stay later in the spring, and require shallower water levels than many waterfowl species, highlighting the need for shallow flooded habitats during these periods. In collaboration with the Migratory Bird Conservation Partnership, which includes the Nature Conservancy, Point Blue Conservation Science, Audubon, California, Sassoon Resource Conservation District, as well as the California Rice Commission, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife will oversee the implementation of these incentive programs. Next slide, please. There's three main programs that will be implemented through this grant, and one of them has several sub-programs. The Bird Returns program has several seasonal programs, all of which aim to meet specific habitat requirements during the designated season. Applications will be evaluated and ranked based on factors such as regional habitat targets, location on the landscape, history of bird use in the surrounding area, and the applicant's selected flooded period. The Spring Wetlands program provides habitat for migrating shorebirds and waterfowl using a gradual drawdown of water levels during the spring. The Summer Wetlands program provides nesting and brood-rearing habitat for local nesting waterfowl and shorebirds while providing habitat for tricolored blackbird, giant garter snake, and western pond turtle. The Late Summer Farmlands Program provides shallow flooded habitat for migrating shorebirds on harvested and unvegetated agricultural fields. The Fall Wetland Program provides habitat for early migrating shorebirds and waterfowl by gradually flooding up seasonal wetlands and maintaining water just until the start of hunting season. The Sandhill Crane Program provides unhunted sanctuary habitat for sandhill crane and other water birds to forage and roost safe from predators. Next slide, please. The Bid for Birds program provides shallow flooded habitat for migratory shorebirds on rice fields post-harvest. Extending the flooding period outside of the rice growing season provides surrogate wetland habitat for migratory shorebirds while integrating bird-friendly conservation practices into farming operations. Next slide, please. One important component of wintering waterbird habitat is winter flooded rice. It is estimated that flooded rice helps to meet approximately 75% of the energetic needs of dabbling ducks and a significant proportion of the energetic needs of shorebirds throughout the Central Valley. In recent years, a decline in winter flooded rice prompted the creation of the California Winter Rice Habitat Incentive Program. Since 2019, approximately 192,000 acres have been enrolled in the program. A recent study found that in the 2021-22 season, which was a drought year, fields enrolled in the program provided habitat for at least 271,000 birds each day. To be eligible for the program, an applicant's fields must have been planted in rice the previous growing season to ensure that waste grain is available for waterbird consumption. Applicants are required to maintain flooded fields at specific depths for 70 days from October 15th through March 25th. Next slide, please. To implement each of these programs, a solicitation or call for bids will be posted. Applications are scored based on several criteria, including proximity to protected lands, history of bird use in the surrounding area, and timing of flooding. Successful applicants are notified and site verification visits are scheduled. Throughout the enrollment period, fields are monitored for compliance as well as bird use to determine program effectiveness. After the enrollment period has ended, staff will verify that all required work was completed, and then only then will landowners be compensated for enrollment in the program. Staff recommends that the Wildlife Conservation Board approve this project as proposed. On the call today to answer any questions you have is CDFW's Kelsey Navarre, Research and Education Coordinator for the Wetland Conservation Program. Thank you.
Great, thank you, James. All right, any questions, board members? All right. When we move to public comment, anyone in the room interested in commenting on this item? I see no hands. How about in the queue?
There are no raised hands.
All right. Sounds like a creative, innovative incentive program that it sounds like a great idea. All right, sounds good. We have a motion. I'll second.
Member Gear,
Aye.
Member Taramini,
Aye.
Member Nagami,
Aye.
Member Pavley,
Aye.
Member Peralt,
Aye.
Member Thomas.
Aye.
The motion passes.
All right. Thank you, James. Congratulations.
Thank you. Right. We're bringing Geneva back up to talk about the Lower Battle Creek Side Channel and Floodplain Restoration Project. Thank you, Geneva.
Hello, I'm back. Okay, so this is the Lower Battle Creek Side Channel and Floodplain Restoration Project. The applicant is Chico State Enterprises, and they're requesting 1.847 million from us, and it's on Department of Fish and Wildlife land. This is part of a larger effort that if you were at the November board meeting, you kind of heard a bit about, which is the California Salmon Strategy for a Hotter, Drier Future. So some of these projects are kind of targeted towards that. And this one meets the Restore and Expand Habitat for Salmon Spawning and Rearing objective. Next slide. So this project consists of construction of an 850-foot perennial side channel along Lower Battle Creek, which is a major tributary to the Sacramento River. Grantee will also be removing 1,700 feet of defunct levee. I think it was installed in like the early 30s. It's not really used for anything. It's defunct. It's sitting there. They'll also be placing gravel and large wood and boulders to create salmonid habitat. And they'll be regrading a specific site along Battle Creek that's a salmonid stranding area. Lots of salmon get stranded there. And then once they're got all the construction and implementation wrapped up, they'll be putting in native plantings throughout the area to fill it in. And then they'll be monitoring the impact of all of this work on the ecosystem. Next slide. So once implemented, this will be increasing salmonid survival and growth within Battle Creek and contribute to the state's overarching and ambitious goal to recover salmon across their range. The project will result in 1.5 acres of new juvenile rearing habitat, offering protection from high flows and predators, increased water oxygenation, and amelioration of fish stranding. The removal of the levee will reconnect 74 acres of floodplain habitat, and both activities will result in a total of 3,560 linear feet of enhanced riparian corridor. So staff recommends the board approves this project as proposed. With me in the audience are a couple of the project team members, including Rebecca Casey, who's the project manager at Chico State Enterprises, if anyone has any questions.
Thanks, Geneva. Any questions, board? All right. Why don't we move to public comment? Any one in the room like to comment on this item?
Let me check with the grantees. Do you guys want to speak?
Come on down.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Casey. I'm an assistant director with the North State Planning and Development Collective. We're one of the campus centers at Chico State. And I'm really excited to be here. And we have our team like online and in the room, and we're out of our wetsuits and off of the boat and out of the creek and out of the willow and blackberry. And here in Sacramento, I'm super excited to be here. And I wanted to thank Geneva for her help in evolving our application and getting us to this place here today. So thank you. Our campus center has a long history of river stewardship, scholarship, and public service on the Sacramento River, and habitat restoration with a particular focus on the winter run Chinook salmon that has right now a single wild spawning population below Keswick and Shasta dams. So our work up on the upper Sacramento River has brought us to Battle Creek, which is a most significant opportunity for salmon restoration. Battle Creek has all 4 runs of Chinook salmon, steelhead, and 2 species of lamprey. So it's an east side tributary in the upper Sacramento River, and it's home to the winter run reintroduction program at the Coleman National Fish Hatchery, and also a part of the Jumpstart program. So we're putting hatchery fish into Battle Creek at Coleman National Fish Hatchery with the hopes that we are going to create another self-sustaining population of winter run Chinook in the event that drought or other environmental conditions make the upper Sacramento River uninhabitable for winter run spawning and rearing like it was in 2015. And so this is sort of like a backup plan that's been underway for a number of years, maybe 25 years. So I think the statistics of the project are in the packet, and Geneva presented that. So I just want to talk a little bit about what you don't see here. That's a part of the project. The project was designed and modeled both left bank and right bank restoration features. So it's a part of a larger project to restore juvenile rearing habitat conditions and liberate geomorphic process on the Battle Creek, which we were out there and we're like, this would be a river in most states in the US. So other portions of the project on the right bank, Bureau of Land Management lands, We're removing also about another 1/4 mile of levee and doing other replanting. And I really wanted to step up here to say that Wildlife Conservation Board is funding a significant portion of the ecological impact of this, interagency restoration plan. And so thank you for your consideration. And I also wanted to say that, looking for my time, I also wanted to say that this project supports not only habitat connectivity, but as a part of our vision and commitment at the university and as professional environmental restorationists, tribal and cultural connectivity back to the land through robust tribal engagement that is native led. So we have substantial tribal support and multiple tribes have signed on letters of support for the work. And we recognize that this project is a boundary project. It's at the edge of overlapping tribal ancestral territories, and it's an area with historic colonial conflict and sensitive ecological and cultural resources. So partnering with tribes is essential to the recovery of salmon, and as a professional, I think probably primary. And we've taken quite a bit of care to engage tribes early, not just in cultural monitoring or replanting, but co-conceiving native-led tribal youth education to bridge Western science and traditional ecological knowledge on this project and in all the projects we conceive of moving forward. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here.
And there should
getting
have
off the
been
boat.
2 late letters of support that were sent over to you. And if not,
Thank you for that. I didn't pay attention to my notes. Thank you. So yes, we did get 2 letters of support from Cindy Childress, Tribal Secretary for the Norrell Mukwintu Nation. Hopefully I said that correctly. And then Joseph James from the Yurok tribe, Yurok Tribal Chairman. So thank you for reminding me.
Wonderful. The Yurok tribe is a construction
Contractor?
on this.
Great. Thank you, Geneva.
Awesome. Anyone else in the room wish to comment in person? Okay. How about online? Do we have anyone in the queue who would like to comment on this item?
There are no raised hands.
Okay, thank you. Another amazing project. Any more questions from the board, comments? And if not, a motion would be great.
I'll move the project.
I'll second.
Val made the motion and Karen seconded. Thank you.
Member Gear,
Aye.
Member Termini,
Aye.
Member Nagami,
Aye.
Member Pavle,
Aye.
Member Peralt,
Aye.
Member Thomas.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you. Wonderful. Bringing James Croft back up to talk about the Honey Lake Wildlife Area Sanctuary Enhancement Phase 1 project.
All right, back to talk about birds again. Thanks for having me. This proposal is to consider an allocation for a grant to Ducks Unlimited Incorporated for a cooperative project with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and United States Fish and Wildlife Service to enhance wetland sanctuary habitat to benefit migratory birds at the Fleming unit of the Honey Lake Wildlife Area, located 16 miles east of Susanville in Lassen County. Next slide, please. Honey Lake Wildlife Area is approximately 7,600 acres of sagebrush and wetland habitat surrounding a shallow lake in the Great Basin Desert within the Southern Oregon, Northeastern California, or SONIC region of the Pacific Flyway. The wildlife area has been a state wildlife area since 1953 and is operated primarily for wildlife viewing and waterfowl and upland game bird hunting. Prior to being a state wildlife area, the property was operated as both seasonal pasture and for producing hay and alfalfa. Honey Lake is within an Intermountain West joint venture bird priority area for waterfowl, waterbirds, shorebirds, and land birds. Next slide, please. Honey Lake Wildlife Area is the furthest downstream water diverter on the Susan River, where annual flows are based on precipitation and snowmelt. Land use practices from upstream diverters, temperature, and rainfall can all drastically affect water availability. In a typical year, water is available in the spring and becomes significantly limited by the summertime. The wildlife area has water rights to divert from the Susan River, but currently lacks the infrastructure to reliably flood the waterfowl sanctuary on the wildlife area. Wetland units within the sanctuary that should provide semi-permanent wetlands for waterfowl breeding and molting remain dry during spring and summer months. In the larger context of the Great Basin, Honey Lake Wildlife Area is part of a network of stopover wetlands that serve as oases for waterfowl and shorebirds on their annual migration routes. A large portion of migratory waterfowl in the Pacific Flyway use this region during spring migration. Therefore, improving project area wetlands will not only provide resilient bird breeding habitat, but will also support spring migrants in a way that is likely to become an increasingly important ecological function of the wildlife area. Areas like this are particularly highlighted are important in winters like the one we're having right now, where we're having a relatively wet winter, but also a relatively mild temperature. So what we're seeing up there in the northern part of the state in Sonic, like say Ash Creek Wildlife Area, and then the Klamath Basin and Tule Lake, is we're seeing that there has been enough rain to put some water out on the landscape, which is great for the birds. We're not having botulism problems and whatnot. But we're also not seeing those really, really cold winters that push birds down into the Sacramento Valley and into the grasslands. So if we foresee in the future that we're going to be having wet, warm winters, it's really important for California to have high quality wetland habitat available in the Sonic region of California and in the Klamath region as well. Next slide, please. Sorry about my map, it'll make sense here in a minute. This project is part of a multi-phase effort to enhance the 304-acre waterfowl sanctuary, as well as an additional 775 acres of wetland and 75 acres of upland habitat on the wildlife area. Phase 1 of the project will focus on completing enhancements to critical water conveyance infrastructure that provides water supply for the project area. A subsequent phase will complete wetland and upland unit enhancements to support waterfowl brooding, molting, and foraging habitat within the sanctuary's closed zone and wider wildlife area habitats. These enhancements will benefit migratory birds and other wetland-dependent species while providing public use benefits such as wildlife viewing and hunting. It makes a lot of sense for us to phase this project in multiple phases to spread out cost, as well as to make sure that we can get all the work done within one grant window. For myself personally, I thought it was a little ambitious to try to complete all of these enhancements in one grant. It'll also give us an opportunity, if approved today, an allocation to Ducks Unlimited for this project could be used as state match for a federal grant in the future to bring additional cost share to subsequent phases. Next slide, please. This project will reconstruct in place three existing water control structures critical to providing surface water from the Susan River to wetland and upland units within the project area. The Fleming Dam, Mickey Mouse Dam, and Overflow Dam are dilapidated, in danger of failing, and restrict the ability to deliver water to the project area. Upgrading these three dams will increase habitat management capabilities and ensure that wildlife area managers can provide high quality wetland and upland habitat when water availability is highly variable and limited. And I'm really, really sorry to say, I know everyone's wondering, no one has any clue why this structure was called the Mickey Mouse Dam. I was hoping there was going to be a cool Walt Disney story, but maybe it's referencing the construction technique. I'm not sure. So there's that. Staff recommends that the Wildlife Conservation Board approve this project as proposed. On the call today to answer any questions you may, or actually in the room today with me to answer any questions is Felon McKinney, biologist from Ducks Unlimited. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Any questions at the board level? Actually, I had a quick question. I understand the concept of replacing dilapidated structures with modern structures. And I don't know anything about this stretch. I don't know anything about the hydrology. We are trying to remove dams from other places. So is there a strategy long-term to to use nature-based solutions or other techniques. I'm just before an investment of resources for more machinery and more infrastructure. Are there nature-based solutions that are available? Have folks looked at that?
Great question, actually. Could we go back to the map slide, please? 5 slides back, that might make. All right, so Honey Lake that you see there, it looks like it's filled with water. That thing is dry most of the year. It's a terminal basin. The Susan River flows into it. That's the end of the line as far as water is concerned. You could walk across it and not get muddy for a huge portion of the year. So this is not a system where we're worried about anadromy or fish passage or anything like that. And these water control structures themselves most of the times they're either dry or they're flooded with water during the winter time, or ice flows when it actually freezes. So this isn't really an area that we're worried about, fish migration or that sort of thing, because there's nowhere for these fish to go, really.
Very helpful. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? All right. Why don't we move to public comment? Anyone in the room wish to speak on this item? I see no hands. How about online? Do we have anyone in the queue?
There are no raised hands.
Okay. Another great project. Who wants to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the project.
Great. We have a motion
I'll second.
and a second.
Member Gear,
Aye.
Member Termini,
Aye.
Member Nagami,
Aye.
Member Pavle,
Aye.
Member Peralt,
Aye.
Member Thomas.
Aye.
The motion passes.
All right. Congratulations. Yay.
All right. Thank you, James. Bringing Aaron Heyman back up. It is your turn. Transforming the Beaver Valley Headwaters Preserve.
Hello again, Jen, board members. This proposal is to consider a project on the Beaver Valley Headwaters Preserve, different mammal, on property owned by the Wildlands Conservancy up in Siskiyou County. The proposal would allocate $2,926,000 in funds for an implementation grant to California trout to benefit coho salmon. Next slide. The Scott River is one of the most important, possibly the single most important and productive watersheds for coho salmon in the state of California. This project will occur along approximately 1/3 of a mile of the East Fork of the Scott River and the 3 acres of adjacent disconnected floodplains, all within the 6,000-acre Beaver Valley Headwaters Preserve. This area includes the confluences with 2 headwater tributaries, Big Mill Creek and Noise Valley Creek, with the East Fork Scott River. And by enhancing this specific site, even though it's only 1/3 of a mile, coho salmon would not only benefit from this property itself and this project, but also will benefit from increased access to those upper tributaries. This area has been heavily impacted by historic gold mining and logging practices, and these impacts have resulted in a river morphology that is straight, simple, rapidly eroding and degrading banks, all contributing to reducing the value of this habitat for rearing and spawning coho salmon. Next slide. There's a great example of that steeply unstable eroding bank right along the edge of the East Scott River within the project boundary. So this project will reshape the area to create back channels, side channels, sheltering alcoves, gravel bars, stabilizing that riverbank, regrading the area to reconnect the river to its historic floodplain, all benefiting the California Salmon Strategy actions by designing and implementing these components to benefit spawning and rearing of coho salmon. Next slide, please. One clarifier In terms of the CEQA coverage for this project, in some of the board documents, there's an indication that the lead agency, which was the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board, issued a programmatic environmental impact report, a PEIR. Just want to clarify that what they issued was in fact a notice of determination, an NOD, to certify compliance with CEQA. And with that, staff recommends that the board approve the project as proposed. In the audience is Damon Goodman from California Trout to help in answering questions and possibly to make a statement. Did you want to?
Sure.
All yours.
Thank you, Aaron. Welcome. Come on up.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me today, and thanks for considering this project. It's been amazing how efficient you've been with today's agenda. Yeah. All right. All right. Well, thanks, Damon. It's good to meet you. As Aaron mentioned, the Scott River is of utmost importance to the Klamath River, and we've had just a very, very phenomenal couple years in the Klamath with dam removal. It's just been so amazing to watch that story unfold. And we can't just remove dams and step away, right? We need to restore this entire watershed to maximize the benefit of that action and all the other investments we've had in the Klamath for our fish and the communities that depend on them. The Scott River, I like to think about it as protecting the best, right? This is just a highlight of coho salmon production in the Klamath and across California. And really, even though it's producing very well right now because of its there's a lot of different factors, the topography, the gradient, the low-lying valley, the groundwater fed system leads to something very complementary for coho salmon. They're still at a fraction of their historical abundance, okay? So we have a long way to go to realize that potential. And in partnership with WCB and other funders, we've taken a strategy to restore the Scott from its mouth to its headwaters. And just to mention a few recent highlights, with the support of WCB, we've taken out a full passage barrier at Scott Bar Mill Creek down at the mouth, the first tributary to the Scott River, as fish move upstream, or the last as they move downstream, and reconnected that entire tributary by taking out that you call it a dam, call it a culvert, a full passage barrier, and replacing it with a full spanning bridge, okay? So you move upstream, one of the biggest impacts that faces the Scott River right now is the mine tailings reach, right? And it's a disconnection of about 25% of the anadromous streams above, including the East Fork. And that's not all year, it's at certain times of the year. But based on an investment from WCB, that allowed us to launch an alternatives analysis to think about how to balance sustainable agriculture in the Scott Valley with ecological needs and the needs of downriver communities as well. That initial investment has led to a large-scale restoration project that both works on reconnecting the tailings and providing connectivity there, improving habitat, and also stabilizing water supply for the local community. So, and that was with a different funding source that we actually implemented. So your funding catalyzed this much larger restoration effort with the Yurok tribe. Now, step above to the Wildlands Conservancy property that we're talking about now. And what we like to think about this is the gateway to the headwaters of the Scott. And so all that work downstream is benefiting the work we're doing here. And this is really a unique opportunity for us, because in the past, there was no access for conservation, right? These are our first steps towards restoring East Fork and learning about it. We've spent the last 2 years focused on that, and this project would realize the potential of what we've learned about there. And so I think it's a really big opportunity for us, and it's not just done with Cal Trout. We see ourselves as just a convener of our partners, and including the Quartz Valley Tribe and the Karuk Tribe, Wildlands Conservancy, the Scott River Water Trust, the Scott River Watershed Council, state and federal entities are all coming together to make this happen. So I won't take too much of your time. I like the efficient track you're on, but if there's any questions I can help answer, please let me know.
Thanks so much. Questions? All right. Love hearing about how projects build on each other on prior investments. So we really enjoy hearing updates like that. Also, shout out for the youth programs, the youth education, and for the tribal youth. As the father of a 12-year-old, I appreciate all of those kinds of opportunities.
Todd
Right, well,
is on the line. Is he a project partner, I believe?
can you say that again? It's a little
Todd Soto.
great. Welcome. Thank you.
You should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay. Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, this is Todd Soto. I'm the Senior Research and Policy Advisor with the Karuk Tribe, and just wanted to mention that we're a partner on this project, and it's a great opportunity to not only have direct involvement with the Karuk Tribe on habitat restoration in parts of the Scott Valley that have historically been off limits for the tribe and tribal members and fisheries program staff. But also this project supports the downriver communities, which the Karuk Tribe is one of those downriver communities that depends on salmon. So I just wanted to make this really brief, but we are committed to supporting this project and the work that's ongoing in the Beaver Valley Headwaters Preserve and continuing to work with CalTrout and the Wildlands Conservancy. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Really loving to see these strong tribal partnerships. So appreciate that.
We also have someone from the Wildlands Conservancy.
Yes, please go ahead. Welcome.
Emily Afriet. You should be able to unmute yourself. Oh God. I'm sorry, the thing is resorting itself. Okay, should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Emily Afriet. I'm the North Coast Regional Director for the Wildlands Conservancy. And I just wanted to briefly extend my deepest gratitude to the Wildlife Conservation Board for considering this project, and to CalTrout and the Karuk Tribe and all of our fantastic partners who have put many hours into making this project a priority. For me, one of the most important aspects, as one of the board members just mentioned, is our education component. So I'm really looking forward to getting started with having school groups from the Siskiyou County Office of Education, field trips, as well as through the Quartz Valley Indian Reservation. So we're really excited to make that happen, and just getting the kids out there for that hands-on experience and learning about water quality and salmonid habitat, revegetation, restoration, and everything in between. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Super exciting. All right. Any other folks in the queue for public comment? I didn't see any hands, but let me ask again. Anybody in the room? Public comment? No. Okay. How about online?
There are no raised hands.
All right. Okay. Any further discussion, questions at the board level? Comments? Kudos? Otherwise, happy to entertain a motion.
I'll move approval, and I'll add a kudo, just that CalTrout and Wildlands Conservancy are two phenomenal organizations that do so much for conservation. And Scott River has not always been an easy place to work. So I appreciate the stick-to-itiveness of working on these issues, and now we're starting to see the fruits of your labor. So thank you so much, and thank you for your work with the tribes, because it's so critically important up there in particular.
Here, here. I will second that.
Member Gear,
Aye.
Member Termini,
Aye.
Member Nagami,
Aye.
Member Pavley,
Aye.
Member Peralt,
Aye.
Member Thomas. The motion passes.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you. All right, our last presentation, we saved the best for last, so don't leave. We have Haley Peckner talking about monarch overwintering and breeding habitat restoration. Hi, Haley.
Good afternoon. So this is a proposal to consider an allocation for a grant to the Xerces Society of Invertebrate Conservation to implement the two highest priority actions for Western monarch population recovery, which includes the restoration of overwintering habitat and early season breeding habitat across the state. Next slide, please. So the graph above shows the Western monarch population count numbers since the count formally began in 1997. And since the 1980s, it's actually estimated that the Western monarch population has declined more than 95%. The three lowest population counts on record, as you can see right here, have all occurred within the last 5 years, and this winter actually marked the third lowest overwintering population since the count began. Next slide, please. So our state plays a vital role in the Western monarch population's health, as California's coast is home to their overwintering sites where monarchs migrate to every winter and remain in a state of reproductive stasis called diapause until spring. The monarch overwintering zone is shown on blue in the map right here. Overwintering sites offer a unique microclimate that are essential for the monarch survival during the winter months. Unfortunately, the quality and quantity of these sites have been in decline due to development, inappropriate tree trimming and removal, pest and disease, wildfires, drought, and a lack of proactive management. Next slide, please. And then as temperatures begin to rise in early spring, monarchs begin to leave their overwintering sites and migrate inland, stopping in the early breeding zone, which is shown on this light blue area on the map right here. And here they're searching for early blooming milkweed and nectar plants. These resources are critical as they provide nectar and the first suitable host plants to for monarchs to lay their eggs. Monarch breeding habitat has unfortunately also declined due to development, pesticide use, and climate change. And while the effects of climate change on monarchs are numerous, one of its primary impacts is shifting the seasonal timing of monarch migration and the availability of their host plants. Monarchs are now leaving their overwintering sites earlier, often before many species of milkweed have emerged, leaving monarchs with limited opportunities to lay eggs. This phenological mismatch emphasizes the growing need to increase early season milkweed species across the landscape. Next slide, please. So first, to address the decline in overwintering habitat quality, the project will focus on restoring overwintering sites along California's coast. This will include completing 100 habitat assessments on CDFW and California State Park sites, developing 15 site-specific habitat restoration plans for the highest priority sites that were determined by those habitat assessments, restoring at least 75 acres of monarch overwintering habitat, and then collaborating with the land managers to ensure the long-term management of these sites. Restoring this habitat truly has an outsized conservation impact. Small areas of intact overwintering habitat can support thousands of monarchs during the most vulnerable period of their life cycle. Monarchs return to the same sites each year and often use the same trees for roosting, making the protection and restoration of these sites essential to their survival and recovery. Next slide, please. And then in addition to the overwintering habitat restoration work that will be done, the project will restore early season breeding habitat on CDFW wildlife areas. This will include creating 3 site-specific restoration plans, restoring 12.5 acres of early season breeding habitat, which will include early season milkweed and nectar plants, and then working with the land managers to maintain these sites. Together, these actions will increase the availability of early season milkweed and nectar plants during the critical first breeding generation when resources are typically limited. Next slide, please. By targeting these 2 highest priority actions, the project aims to prevent further decline and ultimately stabilize and increase the Western monarch population over time. Staff recommends that the Wildlife Conservation Board approve the project as proposed. And then joining us in person, we have Hillary Sardinha, CDFW's statewide pollinator coordinator, And then online, hopefully we also have Amit Pelton, Senior Endangered Species Conservation Biologist at the Xerces Society, and Dina Spatz, Senior Environmental Scientist at California State Parks. And then I'll invite Hillary up to provide a quick remark on the project.
Welcome.
Hi, thanks so much. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here and very impressed with how quickly you've moved through your agenda today. So as Haley mentioned, I'm Dr. Hillary Sardinius, and I'm the statewide pollinator conservation coordinator with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And I'm here today to express my support for Xerces Restoring Monarch Butterfly Overwintering and Breeding Habitat on Public Lands, very long title, project, and also to convey the support of the CDFW lands and wildlife diversity programs, and the regional managers where the projects are happening have also already signed the landowner consent agreements. So CDFW owns and manages 6 monarch overwintering sites. And when the sites were purchased over 30 years ago, some with WCB funds, they actually hosted tens of thousands of butterflies. But recent counts at these sites have been in the low hundreds to tens of individuals, which really highlights that steep decline that Haley talked about. And habitat quality within our sites has been impacted by a lot of factors, included but not limited to drought and flooding. And the habitat management plans, along with subsequent habitat improvement actions, such as planting and fuel treatments that will be implemented by this proposal, will help us improve the conditions for monarchs while enhancing the resilience of the groves and reducing fire risk to surrounding communities. Again, as Haley mentioned, this lack of early season breeding habitat has also been highlighted as a significant limiting factor for Western monarchs, and one that will be addressed through this project through the restoration of key CDFW-owned sites in the Coast Range. And once restored, these sites can act as stepping stones to other habitat projects in the Central Valley and Sierra foothills, many of which the WCB has already funded, for example, through your CARCD block grant. CDFW is committed to working with the Xerces Society to implement this project, and we have confidence in their ability to complete the work because they've successfully met goals and objectives when we've collaborated in the past. So I just want to thank you again for considering this important project, which is aimed at restoring the 2 most important habitat types for the imperiled Western monarch butterfly in California.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I
Yeah,
just have a
Tina.
question, maybe for you. Yeah. Maybe go back to that map of the different arrows of where they migrate to and from. And I'm just curious, is CDFW also working on restoring habitat in the areas where they're migrating from?
So CDFW is part of the Western Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, Western Monarch and Native Insect Pollinator Working Group. It's a huge name, but we are working outside of California with other fish and wildlife agencies in Utah, Washington, Idaho, for example, all across the West to try to identify areas to restore. And within our lands, we've worked on other projects. For example, in the past, the WCB has funded a project with River Partners where we restored some habitat on our land. So it is a goal of ours and one that we're actively working towards.
Okay, thank you. I mean, it's just such a useful project and so important. And it just seems like, we've got to work at both ends of that migration. So I'm glad to hear that that's exactly what's going on.
Yeah, it is, you're right. It's incredibly important. In California, because we have all of the overwintering sites for Western monarchs, is just incredibly important part of that story.
We have all of them?
Yes, there were a few that used to occur in Baja California, but what we know today, a lot of monarchs have been extirpated from those sites, so they're not really visiting them. So really, California is the core of that habitat.
Yeah, my understanding is because they've replaced it with a lot of avocado trees and that kind of thing.
So that's for the eastern population and is in a different part of Mexico, but where the eastern population overwinters. So the western population is what overwinters here on our coast.
Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine.
Yeah, thank you. It says here in the agenda, the project life is 10 years, and these are bond funds, and other bond funded projects are 20 years.
So this, we've had a slight change where we've moved our project life I'm sure as you're aware, to the end of our project term. So it kind of falls in line with our previous projects that we funded over through our pollinator and monarch program, which is typically a 15-year life. So this is about a 4-year project term, and then we'll have the 10 years in management. So it does fall in line with our other pollinator projects that we've done in the past.
So the total lifetime of this project is 14 years?
Essentially, no, sorry, the project life, the term of the actual grant that's going to occur is 4 years. And then the project will end, and then there'll be a 10-year management period following that end date.
So the total project and management time is 14 years?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right, any other questions?
We also have Dina Spatz actually in the building with us, and she'd like to provide a statement as well.
Welcome.
Thanks. I'm just going to keep it short and sweet. Dina Spatz. I'm a senior scientist and a statewide wildlife biologist for California State Parks in the Natural Resources Division. So I'm just here to extend our gratitude to the funding that has already been provided in the past. We've been working with Xerces for the last 5 years. Thanks to WCB funding to create management plans and implement those on a number of our parks. We have at least over a dozen different parks that are implementing management plans already with action on the ground, thanks to your support. And almost 2 dozen different management plans that are either completed or in progress that are helping inform those activities. So in the coming years, we're going to be adding some more management plans, putting some more activities on the ground, and we just want to express our sincere gratitude for supporting that work. We work in collaboration with CDFW and with Xerces to get all of this done. And I just also wanted to say state parks, we were mentioning, California has all those overwintering habitats. State Parks actually manages about 50 of those different sites. It's about 10% of all known overwintering sites in state. Most of those are actively used by monarchs. It's been really low years, so there's been less activity, but in general, most of them are actually used. And we have hundreds of thousands of visitors that come to our state parks every year to see monarchs as well. So we're really excited about stewarding these landscapes, communicating about it with the public, keeping these places, monarch friendly for people to come from all over the world to come see them. And also just in alignment with our state park policies for restoring habitat, we're excited because restoring monarch habitat also is helpful for other pollinators as well, and in general for ecosystem services. So yeah, we're just really thankful for the support.
Thanks so much. Right, any other questions from the board?
I'll move this.
Oh, we gotta do public
we have
comment for a
public
second.
comment. Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, I'm still, adjusting also. Okay, let's do public comment in the room. Anyone want to speak to this item? Seeing no hands, how about in the queue?
There are no raised hands.
All right. Okay, now Tina.
Okay, yeah, I'll move this item. Keep up the good work. This is such a important thing to pursue and such an important species, and really happy to hear that this work is going on and hope that we work more with our Western partners. Appreciate that.
I'll second.
Great, thank you.
Member Gear,
Aye.
Member Termini,
Aye.
Member Nagami,
Aye.
Member Pavle,
Aye.
Member Peralt,
Aye.
Member Thomas.
Aye.
The motion passes.
All right, thank you. Congratulations. Okay, so that was the end of our presentation items. We're going to move to item number 39, which is public forum for items not on the agenda. If there's anyone in the room who would like to speak to any items that were not on the agenda, please go ahead and queue up for the podium, and we will ask folks online to raise their hands to speak online. Okay, not seeing anyone in the room for public forum. How about online?
We have one raised hand. Walter Lamb, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board members. Appreciated the picture of what I think might have been a McGillivray's warbler. Beautiful photo. I am Walter Lamb representing the Bynum Wetlands Land Trust, and just wanted to touch base. I've spoken in the past, maybe a couple years ago, to this board. Two topics today is one is in November of 2019, you allocated some funds for a set of land management plans for ecological reserves in Southern California, and one of those was the Baina Wetlands, and it was a 5-year grant. And then apparently, and we've expressed a lot of interest in the status of that land management plan. And I learned yesterday that, well, I should say I saw the documentation yesterday of two extensions. One, as the November 2024 deadline was approaching, it looked like it got extended to December of 2025. And then as that deadline was approaching, it got extended again, this time to March of 2027. And the concern for us is that the Baina Wetlands it was acquired by the state at the end of 2003 using funding allocated by the Wildlife Conservation Board. And it was designated an ecological reserve in August of 2005. And the statute pertaining to land management plans is for 18 months after the recordation date. And so it could be that time frame is not realistic, and in which case somebody I would think would want to go and see if that can be amended. But to have it be 20 plus years now and still not have it, and to have two extensions and not necessarily any certainty about whether there would be another extension. And in looking at the documents, we were unable to really kind of understand what was the purpose, at least for the Baina Wetlands, of the extension. Why was the work not able to be done during the grant period? And so now with a revised EIR for the larger Baina Wetlands Restoration Project due out, that's a couple years overdue as well. Hopefully, we've been told this is going to come out in a few months.
Thank you, Walter. Can you wrap up? Your 2 minutes has expired.
Yeah, well, I'd just say I think we're gonna. I feel like we have to do something because we're not getting anything from the Wildlife Conservation Board. It almost seems like there's not really any follow-up or concern about the status of these things. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your comment. All right. Any other public comments in the queue?
There are no raised hands.
Okay, great. All right, that's a wrap on our first post Chuck meeting.
Well done.
Thanks, y'all. See you next time.
Good job.